Kirby! Literally everybody knows him. I don't need to do an intro. Literally everybody knows who he is. Even if you've never played a video game in your life before, you probably are somewhat familiar with the Pink Man himself. Nintendo wanted a very simple game that literally anybody could play, and Sakurai delivered. We got a very simple game that literally anybody can play. It's a beautiful thing, but does that carry with it some problems? Let's find out, I guess. Alright, let's get into the very simple yet amazing story. DDD goes to Dreamland and steals all the food in the night and also the transporting stars. And then Kirby says, I'm gonna get them back. And then that happens. That's the end of the story segment. That's the shortest story segment I've ever had to do. What else can I possibly say about this? This is simpler than Mario. So Kirby, as you probably know, has the ability to suction everything pretty much, and that's his main way of fighting in this game. He can suck up enemies and then spit them back out. Now, if you're familiar with Kirby at all, you probably are familiar with his very famous copy ability. This ability does not exist in this first game, funny enough. All you can do in this game is suck them up, swallow them, or spit them back out to get rid of them. That's the only way you're going to get rid of enemies. There are a handful of enemies that cannot be sucked up, and then there's some that if you even try to, they will turn against you, like these guys. I don't know their names, but they're cute and cuddly, and then if you try to, they turn evil, and they're very scary. It's a nice subversion of your expectations. There's 3 power-ups. The sweet potato, the spicy curry, and I think the other one is just like a lollipop. The spicy curry gives you the ability to shoot out fire from your mouth for a limited time. The sweet potato makes Kirby fluff up, and then you can shoot air really quickly, kind of like the spicy curry one, but it's air and you're flying as well. And the candy is just an invincibility power-up. Also, there's the microphone, which the manual says it's a power-up. I think it's only literally in one spot in the game, though. At least, yeah. You shoot it and all the enemies on screen die. It's kind of useless, honestly. The bomb also seems like it's a power-up, at least according to the manual. Well, it's under Kirby's arsenal, so, yeah, if you shoot it and it hits the enemy, a trail of explosions will follow until it reaches the end of the screen, but since you're playing on a Game Boy, the end of the screen is like right there. So it's useful, not that useful though, honestly. We also have bag of magical food, according to the manual, which is the M tomatoes. Yeah, bag of magic food. Yeah, that's strange. I know they were supposed to be bags. Now Kirby's controls are kind of iffy for me. Kirby himself moves pretty slow. It's not terribly slow, especially for the screen size and everything, but it is, I do notice it when I'm trying to get out of the way, try to get out of enemies' ways. It just doesn't happen fast enough for my liking. If you press up on the D-pad, Kirby will inflate himself, and with that ability you can fly. Now sometimes when I'm pressing left or right, I will accidentally press up and Kirby will inflate himself, and then you're just kind of sitting there because there's no quick way of deflating yourself. You have to spit out the air, which does take a few seconds. It's not terribly long, but it is noticeable when you're trying to get out of the way, because when you're inflated or in the air, your movement speed is it's cut down by half. Not only that, but just when you're in the air in general, Kirby, he moves pretty slow. If you compare, I know it's not really fair to compare this to the first Super Mario game, but I'm going to do that because it's the only other platformer that I've reviewed on this channel. If you compare the jump speeds between those two games, and just the movement speed in air and in general, you'll notice that Kirby's pretty floaty, No pun intended. Which again isn't necessarily a bad thing for this game. It almost seems like Kirby's jump isn't good enough to get over most enemies, but it actually is, which is it's just kind of I think it's surprising because it doesn't look really impressive, but it's good enough. Which I don't know how many people would know that intuitively, because again, it doesn't look great, but it works just fine. What doesn't work fine though is your movement speed in the air. That is generally just too slow at some times. There are 4 stages throughout. Well, technically 5, but more like 4 really. We got stage 1, which is Green Greens, which is the generic just green hill World 1-1 kind of aesthetic, even though it's on the Game Boy, so it's all in black and white. But the intent was there. Next we have Castle Low Low Low, which is, there's some characters in there from a different video game series, which is like a nice little reference. It's like a castle, but it's kind of like just strange. I don't really know. It's not your stereotypical castle aesthetic really, but it's like the closest thing to it. We got Float Islands, which is kind of like a tropical setting. There's some boats, there's some water. It's nice and vibrant-y. And last but not least, we have Bubble Clouds, which is, you know, in the clouds and stuff, so dream-esque, if you will. And stage 5 is DDD Mountain, but it's just a boss rush and then the fight with the DDD. So is this stage? Not really. At the beginning of each of these sections, you get a nice little transition animation, which are all really nice. They're all they're full of life, you know? It's almost like I'm watching a very small cartoon going on in my Game Boy. And in general, Kirby's animations are, and all the animations in this game are really, really nice. Really nice. I kind of want to compare it to Cuphead in terms of like, oh, it's like I'm playing a cartoon. This game came out in '92. So it's not that comparable, but it's like the closest thing I can compare it to. Just to get the point across that these animations look really nice. I personally really like the transition on stage 4 with all the Kirbys popping out of the cloud. Doesn't really make sense what's going on here, but I just like it. I freaking like all of them, because this one's really nice too. Like, look at that face. Look at that face. And then there's some transitions in the stages themselves, like with this whale. It's just really cool. I don't know. It exudes a lot of character, exudes this kind of happy-go-lucky energy, and it's really great. So most enemies in this game don't really do much. They're either just hopping around or like flying in a circle, or are just there. Again, like I mentioned before, there are some enemies that you can't just suck up and then just spit back out. Again, there's these enemies that if you try to suck up, they will turn evil, but if you don't, then they'll just leave you alone, so, you know. You could just not suck up any enemies at all and just shoot air at them, which, I mean, isn't that much of a problem, I would say, but it is kind of like, oh yeah, it's something you can do. You probably won't. There's no point of going out of your way and not sucking up the enemies and then spitting them out at other ones. But it's something, I guess. I don't know. I don't freaking know. Now, that's not the case with bosses, though. The bosses, you do have to shoot actually something out them, not just air, because that just will not damage them. First off, we have Wispy Woods, which is notorious for being one of the most difficult bosses in all of gaming. By most difficult, I mean it's a joke. It's just a tree. It's just a tree. He'll shoot air at you, which you can easily avoid by just crouching, so, you know. It'll drop apples, which you can suck up and shoot at him, and that's how you beat him. And, yeah. There's also a mini-boss in this stage. I don't know his name. In the video that I did for the channel, we got, like, the best cycle that you can get, where he just literally throws the bombs at you, and you can just, you don't have to worry about anything. He can also, like, jump around, but, we didn't see that, so yeah. Next off, we have Low 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 and La La La. First you fight one of them by themselves. I'm not sure which one, but that's the mini-boss, which is very simple. You just gotta take the box away from him and shoot it at him 3 times, and that's that. But then when you fight both of them at the same time, it is a little more complex. It's not that much more complex, though. You gotta suck up the boxes and shoot it at them once you get a chance, while also avoiding them because they'll just walk on by and you'll get touch damage. It's a lot simpler once you take out one of them, because then you just have to focus on the other one, and it's really easy to avoid at that point. Next we have Kabula, the airship kind of thing. This is a section where it kind of turns into a shoot 'em up, but a very rudimentary one. It's a nice little encounter. It's different from all the other ones, so it spices things up a little bit. You can take him down pretty quickly as long as you just keep mashing the button and avoiding the projectiles that he shoots, which isn't too hard to do. Yeah, it's a nice little encounter. And finally, we have Kracko. We fight him twice. We fight him first as a mini-boss, and then next as a actual boss. I would say Kracko, the actual boss fight, is probably the most difficult in the whole game. I mean, I guess maybe DDD is harder, but Kracko definitely seems to be a little more intimidating. That being said, though, once you find out his pattern, he isn't that hard to avoid. But again, you need to know already that your jump is sufficient enough to get over most things, because you're probably gonna think like, oh no, I'm gonna get hit if I just jump. I gotta inflate myself and fly over him, which is actually worse because when you do that, you're slower and you're more likely to get hit afterwards. But yeah, Kracko, he's a fun enemy. He's fun to jump over. It's really satisfying to successfully jump over him. And the mini boss fight is kind of a joke. He's gotta like stay in the left corner, and you're pretty much good. And finally, we have DDD himself. He isn't too bad. You gotta wait for him to do certain moves in order for like stars to come out, and you can suck up those stars and shoot them back at him. He uses his hammer. He does this stomp that you probably recognize from Smash Brothers, and I think that's the only way he can make stars. He has other attacks, like he'll run at you and then fall, and he can also suck you up and spit you out. He's not that difficult, but you might like lose once to him, and then like you'll get what you're supposed to do the next time and then beat him. Yeah, not that hard of a fight, but you know, it's whatever. Now after that, we get a little cutscene of Kirby returning all the food to Dreamland, and then DD cries his eyes out. But once that happens, we get a code for Extra Game, which is a more difficult version of the normal game. And oh my god, it's a nice. I like the addition. That being said, I don't know how I feel about it. There's a lot of new enemies. They function basically the same way the older enemies do, except they're a lot faster and a lot more erratic also. Again, they are also different. Like there's this one little cupcake guy that shoots out weird things, whereas before there was just a different guy there that didn't do that. Now the game is obviously more difficult now because of the extra mode. That's what it's supposed to be. But I feel like it's more difficult because Kirby's moveset just it doesn't fit this style of game really. It can get pretty difficult trying to avoid some of these enemies. It's like, how am I supposed to avoid this? Kirby just doesn't move fast enough for me to be able to avoid this. It doesn't happen all the time. There were some sections where I'm like, yeah, Kirby's is not built for this kind of game, you know? The bosses are all different. For example, Wispy Woods, he drops Gordos along with the apples, which you're supposed to avoid, which, you know, makes it a little more difficult. Not that much more difficult, but it is kind of like ooh, gotta make sure I don't get hit by the Gordos or the apples, because that can happen. The low mini boss fight is a lot more difficult, but not because he's harder to fight. It's just he moves too fast, so your window of opportunity after you suck up the box to shoot back at him is a lot smaller. So it's just kind of like I'm just spending a lot of time just like trying to get him. Also, he also like kicks a Gordo towards you as well, so you got to avoid that on top of the box. Which again, you don't need to avoid the box; you need to get the box. But you know, it's kind of annoying. The la fight though is pretty much the same, but they're just faster. That's the only difference. The Kabula fight, I feel like he shoots his projectiles in a different way that are a little more sporadic. I think that's what's different. I can't really tell anything else that's different. So yeah. The Kracko fights are both different, they have different strategies, but again, once you recognize the pattern, they're not that difficult to actually take out. You can pretty much do it just by standing in the corner again. Now the full boss fight, it can be, again, difficult if you don't know that you can just jump and Kirby will clear Kracko himself when he goes and he dashes at you in the corner. I was inflating and jumping up to avoid him, but you don't need to. You just jump, and then by the time you come back down, he'll get out of the way. And DDD himself, DDD is, I feel, a lot more difficult because he moves just faster, and yeah, again, the problems with the movement speed arise here because you can jump over DDD, but it is a little more difficult because he does have his hammer, which he'll pull out, which you will get hit by it. And then sometimes, you know, it isn't clear because he's like running at you, and sometimes he'll hit you with the hammer, sometimes he'll do something else. You're not really sure. So sometimes you can clear him pretty easily, but at least in my experience, other times I'm like, okay, I need to like float over him. And when I'm in the air, there's no way to easily come down to the ground like fast. So you're basically like at his mercy when you're floating in the air. So it can get a little difficult. So yeah, but after you beat him for the second time, you get another code, and you get like this extra mode where you can give yourself like a lot more lives or like limit your health in a certain way. And I believe you also get like a sound test, which is really nice. And that's it. You don't actually need to beat the games to actually activate these things. If you know the code, you can just do it whenever you want. So it's Kirby. It's Kirby. It's a real simple game. There isn't much more to say. If I tried to say anything else about this game, I feel like I would just be stretching it out. It's a real simple game. Anybody can play it. It's a nice time. It's a comfortable, relaxing experience. It's just all around a nice, cheerful time that anybody can enjoy, really. I don't think it's brain dead necessarily, where it's like, I don't even feel like playing this. But I also don't feel like it's too challenging where the average person will be like, I just can't do this. I do think the animation quality definitely helps with having anybody want to play this game, because Kirby is a cute little guy. Everybody likes Kirby. How can you look at this guy and be like, I don't like this guy? Like, literally nobody's ever said that ever. I refuse to believe that. Just no. Never at all.
Also, the music is amazing!
The lack of copyability may have returning players be kind of like, why would I play this game? Why would I play this game without the copyability when there's already other Kirby games that have the copyability? Point to All-Star, which basically has a remake of this game in it with copy abilities and better graphics. So, you know, it's kind of like, well, why would I want to play this game? I do think the OG Game Boy graphics, though, I do think they have some charm to them that you won't get out of the All-Star version. So there is that. That being said, though, other than that, I don't know what much you're gonna get out of this game that you wouldn't just get out of playing the All-Star version of this game, basically. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I would recommend it. Give it a try. You can beat it in like 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if you're slow. I don't know. You know, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Leave a comment. Next, I don't know what the next review is going to be, but this is probably the last review for the year. So yeah, Kirby. I don't know what else to say. How long was this video? This recording is barely 30 minutes. So 18-minute video? I don't know. Leave a comment. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Peace out. Alright, let's get into the very simple yet amazing story. I think most people who watch my videos don't even know what that's from. That's a reference to one of my old videos, which somebody says that Super Mario 64 had a simple yet amazing story, so I always like to say that. Yeah. I love Kirby. He's a pink boy. I love him.